Hey guys, welcome back. Today's topic is respiration in plants. Stomata in leaf are the sites of gaseous exchange in plants. These stomata are found in leaf epidermis. They are found in leaf epidermis. These are the tiny pores. These are the tiny pores present in leaf epidermis, and these are the sites of gaseous exchange in plants. Okay, and there are other areas on the plant body as well through which gas exchange take place, like surface of roots, lenticels on stem. So through these surfaces and also through the lenticels, gaseous exchange can take place. Okay, so stomata, the surface of the roots, lenticels, they are playing very important role in gaseous exchange in plants. If we look here, these are the stomata. Okay, you can see here stomatal apparatus. This tiny pore which is found inside, this is the stomatal pore. Okay, this is a magnified image, but it is found in the leaf epidermis. Okay, tiny pores present on the leaf epidermis, they are called stomatal pores. Okay, they are surrounded by guard cells. Okay, stomatal pores are surrounded by guard cells. Okay, and these guard cells regulate opening and closing of stomatal pores. Okay, now, so these guard cells which are surrounding the stomatal pores, they regulate the opening and closing of these stomatal pores. When water enters into the guard cells, okay, the guard cells become turgid, okay, and that allows the stomatal pore to open. Okay, and when water is removed from the guard cells, then these guard cells become flaccid, the stomatal pore gets closed, and this is how guard cells regulate the opening and closing of stomatal pore. Okay, you can see here, when water enters, this is opened stomatal pore, this is opened, and this is closed. Okay, this is because the water is lost outside. Okay, the water is lost outside. Okay, so this is the reason the stomatal pore gets closed, and the gases exchange during that process, okay, will stop. Okay, this is how stomata are playing very important role in gas exchange, and the guard cells are regulating this process. Okay, now moving to one more structure. This is a stem of a plant. Okay, this is a stem of a plant, and on the surface of this stem, lenticels are present. Okay, so this is a magnified image of a lenticel. Okay, so through these lenticels, okay, through these lenticels, gaseous exchange take place in plants, especially on stem. Okay, so the stems have lenticels. Through these lenticels, gaseous exchange occur in stem. Okay, and in case of leaves, stomatal apparatus play very important role in gaseous exchange. Now, moving to the next, some plants have specialized structures like breathing roots of mangrove plants. Okay, so this is very important concept. Okay, breathing roots, also they are called pneumatophores. Okay, now, so these are the breathing roots of mangrove plants. Okay, these are the specialized structures. These are called breathing roots. Okay, these are found in mangrove plants, as well as the tissue in orchids that produce oxygen. Okay, so in these plants, these are the specialized structures that play important role in gaseous exchange, and this pneumatophores concept is very important for exams. These are the breathing roots present in mangrove plants. Okay, Now, moving to the next, after this, you can see here the breathing roots. Okay, these are the breathing roots. Okay, these roots are in the air. Okay, and these are what we call pneumatophores. Okay, pneumatophores. These are what we call breathing roots. These are breathing roots. Okay, so this is about the pneumatophores present in the mangrove plants. Okay, now if we look here, conduction within the plant, how these gases are transported to each and every cell in the plant body, that is what we call conduction. Conduction means transport. Okay, and here the topic of discussion is about the gases, exchange of gases. So transport of gases within the plant, how does it occur? Let's discuss. Okay, the stomatal openings lead to a series of spaces between the cells inside the plant. Okay, if you look here in this picture, this is the stomatal opening. This pore is called stomatal pore. Okay, through this stomatal pore, okay, what happens? The gases will enter. Okay, this is stomatal pore. Through this, the gases will enter. Okay, let's suppose here air is entering like this. Okay, so this stomatal pore leads to air spaces between the cells. You can see this is air space. This is air space between the cells. There are air spaces. So stomatal pores lead to air spaces within the plant body. Okay, so that is what you need to remember. The stomatal openings lead to a series of spaces between the cells inside the plant. Okay, now the air spaces are lined with water. Very important. Okay, these air spaces are lined with water. If you see here, okay, so this is water film. This is water film. Okay, air space is surrounded with water film. Okay, it means water molecules are present. A thin layer of water, that is water film, is present here in these air spaces. Okay, now the air spaces are lined with water where the oxygen is dissolved. Okay, oxygen gets dissolved in the water film that is present in the air space. Oxygen is soluble in water. That is what we call dissolved oxygen. Okay, so the oxygen is dissolved in this and passes through the porous cell walls into the cytoplasm. Okay, you can see here this is a plant cell. Okay, now here is a water film. So through this porous cell wall, the water can enter into the cell. The water can enter into the cell like this. Okay, so because cell wall is permeable to water. Okay, cell wall is freely permeable. Water can pass through it. So here what happens? Okay, the water will enter into the cytoplasm. As oxygen is present in that water, the oxygen can be utilized inside the cell. So this is how transport of oxygen is taking place. I repeat this concept once again, very important. Okay, the stomatal openings lead to a series of spaces between the cells inside the plant. Okay, you can see here this is a stomatal opening. It is leading to a series of air spaces between the cells in the plant. Okay, after that the air spaces are lined with water where the oxygen is dissolved in this and passes through the porous cell walls into the cytoplasm. You can see this air space is lined with a water film and the oxygen is dissolved in that water, and as the cell walls are porous, as they are freely permeable, okay, the water can enter into the cell cytoplasm. Along with the water, the oxygen is also entering into the cell cytoplasm. So this is how transport of oxygen occurs into the cell cytoplasm, where it is useful for the metabolic reactions that release energy. Okay, now moving to the next. After this, hence the glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water with the liberation of energy. So inside the cell cytoplasm. Okay, so what happens? Cellular respiration occurs. Okay, so here inside the cell, cellular respiration occurs. Okay, glucose is breaking down into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so here if we look here, C6H12O6, this is glucose. Okay, and here 6O2. Okay, so this is oxygen. Then what happens here? 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. Okay, so energy is released. So this is how aerobic respiration take place. What is this called? Aerobic respiration process occurs inside the cells. Okay, this is glucose molecule, this is oxygen. So in the presence of oxygen, aerobic respiration take place, and because of that the products are carbon dioxide and water, and along with this energy is released, which is stored in the form of ATP. Okay, so this is what we call aerobic respiration. Energy is released. The carbon dioxide passes out into the air spaces by a similar method. Okay, so the carbon dioxide which is released during the aerobic respiration process inside the cell, it is passing by the same mechanism into the air space, so that from there it can go into the air through the stomatal pores. Okay, so this is how here if you look, this is the passage for let's suppose oxygen is entering like this. Now once the oxygen is utilized inside the cell, the carbon dioxide will come out. That carbon dioxide is released like this. First of all, it comes out from the cell into the air space. From the air space through the stomatal pore, it is moving, it is coming out into the air which is outside the leaf. Okay, so this is how the gaseous exchange take place. Oxygen is utilized in the cells, carbon dioxide is released out of the cells. This is what the gaseous exchange process. Okay, now here after this the whole system works by diffusion. What is diffusion? It's very simple. Okay, molecules here, gaseous molecules, in this case oxygen and carbon dioxide, gaseous molecules move from their higher concentration, okay, to lower concentration spontaneously. That is what we call diffusion. Okay, so spontaneous movement of gaseous molecules like oxygen and carbon dioxide, as we are discussing in this case, from their higher concentration to lower concentration is what we call diffusion. Okay, and as the oxygen is used up by the cells, a gradient develop. Gradient means difference in concentration. Gradient is nothing but difference in concentration. Okay, so as the oxygen is utilized by the cells, there will be lower concentration of oxygen in the cells when compared with the air space. So what happens, you can imagine now, oxygen will diffuse from outside into the cell. That is what we call diffusion of oxygen. Okay, so as the oxygen is used up by the cells, a gradient develops between the cells and the air in the spaces. Okay, if you look here again, between the cells and the air space, okay, a gradient is developed. Gradient means difference in concentration. Oxygen is diffusing from higher concentration to lower concentration. Okay, so that is what a diffusion is taking place. A gradient of is responsible. Concentration gradient of oxygen, gradient in oxygen concentration is responsible for the diffusion process here. Okay, now after this, as more carbon dioxide is released by the cells, a gradient occurs in the reverse direction. Now there is higher concentration of carbon dioxide inside the cells and lower concentration outside the cell in the air space. So this is in a reverse direction, a gradient is developed. So carbon dioxide move out of the cell, diffuses out of the cell into the air space. From there it will diffuse out into the atmosphere through the stomatal pores. So this is how gradients of oxygen and carbon dioxide are developed, and they are responsible for gaseous exchange in leaves through stomatal pores. Okay? Now, here, aeration of roots, one more important concept. Okay? Most plants can aerate their roots by taking in oxygen through the lenticels or through the surface of their root hairs. Okay? So, in case of old plants, okay, in case of older roots, there are lenticels. In case of smaller plants, surface of the roots play, surface of the root hairs play important role in gaseous exchange. So, in most of the plants, can aerate their roots. The plants can aerate their roots by taking in the oxygen through the lenticels or the surface of their root hairs. Okay? They obtain oxygen from the air spaces existing between the soil particles. If we look here in a rough diagram, let's suppose this is a root hair. Okay, now let's suppose this is a root hair. This is epidermal cell. This is a root hair, let's suppose. And this is surrounded by soil particles like this, let's suppose. Okay, now? So here, in these soil particles, oxygen will be present. Okay, oxygen will be present. Okay, and this is a part of a cell. This is epidermal cell. What is this? Epidermal cell. This is root epidermal cell. So this root hair is also a part of this cell. Okay, so what happens now? You can imagine. If this is a soil, these are the soil particles. Okay, soil particle. Okay, now between the soil particles there is air space. Okay, so this is air space. This is air space. So obviously in that air space oxygen concentration is more. Okay, so oxygen diffuses into the cell where the concentration of oxygen is less. So this is how oxygen molecules diffuse from their higher concentration to lower concentration into the cell. Okay, now? So this is how most plants can aerate their roots. They are supplying oxygen by this mechanism, and obviously this is a diffusion of oxygen, diffusion mechanism. Okay, now moving to the next. After this, plants which grow in very wet place, okay, such as ponds or marshy soils, they are unable to obtain oxygen. In such plants, okay, in that water, in that marshy land or in the ponds, oxygen levels are very low. So plants which grow in very wet place such as ponds or marshy soils, they are unable to obtain oxygen. Okay, they are adapted to these waterlogged conditions. Okay, waterlogging means more water is available in that area. Okay, so in that waterlogged condition they are adapted by having much larger air spaces. Okay, so in these plants which grow in wet places such as ponds or marshy soils, these plants have much larger air spaces when compared with the terrestrial plants. Okay, so these plants have much larger air spaces which connect the stems with the aerial roots. Okay, so these larger air spaces present in the plants that are growing in the wet places, they are having, okay, larger air spaces that are connecting the stems with the aerial roots. Okay, the most usual adaptation is to have a hollow stem so that there is a direct connection. If there is a hollow stem between the stem and the roots, there will be a connection. So gaseous exchange can occur easily, or the conduction or transport of gases can occur easily through this hollow stem. Okay, so the adaptation in the plants that grow in wet places is they have much larger air spaces and they are adapted to waterlogged conditions. Okay, now moving to the next. Here the problem of air transport is more difficult to trees, and not many survive with their roots permanently in water. If the roots of the trees are permanently in water, there will be a problem of air transport, and it is very difficult condition to supply oxygen continuously for the roots in waterlogged conditions, or the plants with their roots permanently inside the water. It's a very difficult condition to obtain or to supply oxygen to the roots or to aerate the roots. It is a difficult condition for these plants. Okay, so an exception is the mangrove plants. Okay, mangrove tree of the tropics, okay, which have aerial roots. Mango tree have aerial roots above the soil surface and takes in oxygen through these roots. I have already shown a picture. Here you can see a mango tree, okay, mangrove plants with aerial roots. These aerial roots, these are the breathing roots, these are the pneumatophores. The roots are in the air. Okay, so if the roots are permanently inside the water, that will be a difficult situation for the roots to get aerated. But in this case, this is an exception. In plants like mangrove tree, okay, you can see here aerial roots, the breathing roots, pneumatophores, they are present. Okay, so this is one of the important feature of mangrove plants. They can get air directly. They can get oxygen directly from the air. Okay, so this is one of the very useful adaptation developed by mangrove trees. Okay, now this is all about today's topic. Let's discuss some important questions from this topic which are useful for your competitive exams. Okay, so here first question: dash in leaf are the sites of gaseous exchange in plants. Option 1 stomata, option 2 cuticle, option 3 xylem, option 4 phloem. So here dash in the leaf are the sites of gaseous exchange. So most of the gaseous exchange take place through which structures present in leaf? Here the option 1 is the correct option. Stomata in leaves are the sites of gaseous exchange in plants. Okay, now moving to the next question: the air spaces between cells in leaves are lined with dash, where the oxygen is dissolved in this and passes through the porous cell walls into the cytoplasm. Okay, so here air spaces between the cells in leaves are lined with what? That is the question. And the oxygen is dissolved in that particular component, okay, and passes through the porous cell walls into the cytoplasm. Here option 1 carbon dioxide, option 2 nitrogen dioxide, option 3 water, and option 4 hydrogen sulfide. Okay, here the correct option here is water. Okay, so the air spaces between cells in leaves are lined with water film. Okay, there is a thin water film. Okay, so there is a thin water film in the air space in which the oxygen is dissolved and it is passing into the cell cytoplasm through the porous cell walls. Okay, so the right option here is third option, that is water, and there is a thin water film in the air space. Okay, and now moving to the next question, question number 3. Statement 1: most plants can aerate their roots by taking in the oxygen through the lenticels or through the surface of their root hairs. Is this statement correct? What is your answer? Yes, it is true. Okay, most of the plants can aerate their roots by taking in the oxygen through the lenticels present on the root surface or through the surface of their root hairs. This is correct statement. Now moving to the second statement: mangrove tree of the tropics have aerial roots above the soil surface and takes in oxygen through these roots. Is this statement correct? Yes, obviously this is true. Okay, so here if we check the options now, both the statements are true. Yes, this is correct. And if you check the other options, both the statements are false, wrong. Statement 1 is true, but the statement 2 is false, wrong. Statement 2 is true, but statement 1 is false, wrong. So most appropriate option here is option 1. Okay, now moving to the next question here. Pneumatophores occur in. What are pneumatophores? These are the breathing roots. Okay, these are the breathing roots, or these are the aerial roots. Okay, now so just now we have discussed they were found in mangrove tree. Okay, they are found in mangrove tree. We have seen the picture of this pneumatophores as well. These are the breathing roots. Okay, they occur in option 1 carnivorous plants. No, carnivorous plants they depend on certain insects for their nutrition. This is wrong. Free floating hydrophytes. Okay, this is wrong. Free floating, no, these are not floating, these are not found in floating plants. No, this is wrong. Halophytes, yes, halophytes, these are correct. Okay, for example, if we check here mangrove tree, okay, this is an example of halophyte. Okay, halophyte, salty water, they are seen, like they are found in we can call marshy land or marshy soil. Okay, they are found. Okay, in such cases like in ponds, swampy areas, marshy areas, these plants are seen. These are called halophytes. Salty water can be seen in the area. Okay, so here pneumatophores occur in halophytes. This is right. Okay, submerged hydrophytes is wrong. So the most appropriate option here is pneumatophores occur in halophytes like mangrove tree. Okay, so this is all about today's session. If you are new to my channel, subscribe for more sessions. If you liked it, share it with your friends. I'll be back with more sessions